Good afternoon, and thank you, David. Good afternoon to you all. Firstly, an apology. I'm really struggling with man flu, so as you know, or the men in the room know, that's just one step below death. But I will try and be as clear as I can. And what I'm going to do is, if I can find my presentation, there you go. I've just got a few short provocations I want to share. As you know, there's an argument in the futurist community about whether we should make predictions or not. I'm not going to make any predictions, but what I am going to do is to share some views about what could shape the next year and then the ramifications of that for the year ahead. And the first is, I think we're moving into a world of what you might call flexible absolutes, or even absolutes. In the idea that many organizations have made commitments around everything from the ESG policy to when they'll get to net zero to diversity in the boardroom and all of those kinds of things. And what I think we're likely to see, and we're already seeing some of this, is over the next year, a gradual sliding back on the timescales for achieving these things. The goals will still be there, but the commitment to net zero by 2025 or 2030 or whatever will get pushed. And that's because of external pressures. And we all know what that is, what that looks like in terms of geopolitics, economic uncertainty, the impact of AI, all of those things are leading organizations already to kind of rein in spending, some of the things that feel like they're non-core getting pushed back. And the difference between organizations who are doing these things because they feel it's a compliance requirement and therefore demonstrating what you might call measure-serving behavior versus those who genuinely have taken on board diversity, inclusion, reaching these sustainability goals as part of who they are. So I think we're going to see more of a debate about that. But also gradually we'll either see public acknowledgement that people are sliding back, or very quietly they'll change the goals and we won't see them, or they'll take away the absolute dates around that. And that makes it very hard for a lot of us who are trying to work around that to operate, and particularly inside the organization. The second, if you like, provocation is what might happen after the next 100 days, and what does that 100 days look like? We have this really interesting development coming now where Trump is partnered with Musk. So you have the most powerful man in the world and the wealthiest, and both of them want the other title. And Trump has never worked alongside someone who has such a high profile, such a big following, who is as wealthy, who has the kind of power that Musk has, and the success he's achieved, and the technological capabilities he's been able to bring to market, but also that unerring self-belief that we see in everything that Musk does. And Musk is already starting to demonstrate his power. You may have seen this week that the US has struggled to agree a government budget, and there's a risk of shutdown. Now that might have changed overnight because I haven't seen the news, but Musk actually put out 100 tweets in one day saying that they shouldn't pass the bill that had actually been put together, led by the Republican chair of the House. And he managed to get the other Republicans, or influence the other Republicans, to withdraw that bill, mainly by getting their supporters to bombard them with calls and texts saying, no, don't vote for the bill. So we can see Musk's power coming through. What that means in terms of his influence with Trump and whether they stay friends for the next 100 days, I think will have a very big footprint. But also, what are the policies going to be around everything from immigration, climate change, and global trade tariffs, through to things like domestic policy on the environment. And we've already seen Trump saying that if you invest $1 billion, we'll relax environmental rules for you. So we'll see a lot go on, and we'll get a better sense of where the administration is really heading and what its policies are going to be around its level of global engagement and how quickly they can try and get the big conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine to come to an end. however unpleasant they might be for some of the players within that. Trump doesn't like wars, he doesn't like US involvement. So how that plays out, I think, is going to be critical. And that also leads to this next challenge we see, that we have this combination of, at one level, super divergence, and at the other level, super convergence. So super divergence globally versus super convergence at the individual level. What do I mean by that? Well, we now have this grouping called the G20, which is 19 of the wealthiest countries plus the European Union and the African Union. And it started out as a body that was making a lot of agreements and heading in the same kind of direction, basically built on Western values. But what we saw is, in the latest G20 in Brazil, they achieved very little, and it's harder and harder for them to get alignment. And if you look at this final picture that's meant to be the leaders of the G20 players, there's 52 people on that stage, which shows how hard it is, because they're inviting the whole world in to try and be part of this. In the middle, you then have the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, who are also all part of this grouping, but who are moving towards an alignment around China and China's economic policy, because they see more value to be gained there. And then if you like the other end of the spectrum, you see what's being called the axis of upheaval, China, Iran, North Korea and Russia, who are very much aligned around almost an anti-G20, anti-Western values position. And the tensions between those, I think, are likely to grow. So not only have we got super divergence within the G20, which is meant to be an aligned group, but also between that, the BRICS, and the axis of upheaval. And then again, what impact does the policy set that the Trump and Musk isn't VP, but thinks he is, what does that start to do to these things, to these entities? And will they act in a way that starts to increase that super divergence, or will they act in a way that maybe pulls some of these blocks closer together and eliminate some of their policies? Because Trump does actually have a pretty good relationship with at least two of the axes of upheaval. And then the super convergent side is where we see all these advances in science and technology coming together at the individual level to give us real agency and to allow us to do more and more as individuals, and to access more and more services, know more about our bodies, move forward on the enhancement of our bodies if we want, but being able to operate far more effectively in the world with these technologies converging around us. Whereas with that super divergence, there's this sense of we have less and less influence at the bigger level and less ability to control it or predict it or know how to navigate it. But at our personal level, we might well be able to move forward. And I had this conversation with someone online this morning that we could have both this feeling of being lost in the global picture, but actually being quite optimistic about what we can do at the individual level. The next that I think we're going to see more and more of being discussed is this idea of the incels, the incelosphere, the manosphere, these people who are involuntarily celibate. And where we're seeing that they've actually got a boost, the number of people who identify as this, all males, is growing dramatically. It got a big boost after the election of President Trump. And 1 week after, and you could see a rise in the use of anti-feminist language, misogynist language, derogatory language towards women, and this idea of male supremacy. And 1 week later, you saw a 4,600% increase in reference to two key terms. One is your body, my decision, and the second is get back to the kitchen. And a really strong sense, the Andrew Tates of this world and others pushing this agenda and really encouraging people to believe that we're moving into a world where males might dominate. On the other side, we have a movement that's risen out of Korea called the 4Bs, 4 terms in Korean, but it's women pushing 4 key messages, which are no dating with men, no marriage with men, no sex with men, and no babies with men. And we're seeing that movement spread around the world. So you're going to see more and more, I believe, tensions between the two, and starting to influence government policy, starting to influence local policy, and creating some real challenges for corporations, both in terms of recruitment, but also the marketplaces they serve. If they're in the consumer space, thinking about how do they message to those groups. And then finally, my fifth provocation is that there's a lot of noise about...
Final few seconds, Rohit.
It is, yeah, absolutely. We're seeing a lot about O3 and all these capabilities in Gen AI, and lots of noise about we can't use it because of compliance and whatever. But I think what we're going to see is more and more leaders and people in business take a step back and say, actually, let's learn how to use this stuff properly. Let's have the tools create the courses for us to learn how to use them, and start to see how effectively we can use it. Use the tools in planning, in strategy, in marketing, and all sorts of things that don't create concerns about corporate data. And we're already seeing that massive increase now in understanding of what could be done. And I think once we start to see that, then we'll get past this noise that says AI isn't having an impact. So I hope that makes sense. Written an article that explains these in more detail. If you want that, just grab a picture of the screen, drop me an email, and I'm more than happy to share that. All right, thank you. Hope that fits.
That was great, Rohit. Thanks so much. And we're now going to break into tables. Rohit's going to go to the Meet the Speaker table, and you can either, everybody else, go there or stay where you are. 9 minutes for each of you to say what you liked, what was shocking, what you disliked about what you just heard, and then we'll meet again for the next provocation. Ian?